It is possible to get a child to listen to you the first time you ask them to do something without you yelling, without repeating instructions, or even doing the reward system that we always do to give them the motivation to do what we are asking them. And no, it does not require any fancy kind of discipline or perfect consequences or reward system that we have talked about. You see, the way we talk and communicate to the children makes it easier or harder for them to follow directions in which we are asking them to do things. My name is Margaret Jeroge, and today I'll walk you through 5 steps that you can do when you want children to really follow directions completely. I will break it down for you so that you can be able to follow. And these are things that I have done, practiced, trained, and coached others to practice them, and they work at home. They can work at school. They also can work anywhere in transitions, or even when we find ourselves into those very sticky, tricky situations that we find ourselves in. Go ahead and click the button and subscribe. Let's have this conversation. The first step is what I call the catalyst fuel. You see, when we are giving children instructions, it is good to understand their world. When children are engaged into an activity, may it be play, listening to something in form of a program on TV, they immerse themselves completely. They dive in and they abandon themselves into that activity and into that space. When they are there, they create something which I like to call the focus bubble. And it is a big bubble so that nothing else matters, not even what your voice is saying, because it is completely cancelled all the other noises outside that bubble. And that is what the children do. So our job becomes to carefully be able to take them out of that bubble, really almost break that bubble or crack it open so that we can take them out so that they can be able to hear us. How do we do that? The first thing you do is to walk to them. Walk over them and then crouch down to their eye level. This is incredibly important. Why is it important? Because when you're standing, you become dominant and you trigger the idea of the fright, fight, freeze. And definitely that is when you invite something like argument to be ignored, or the child completely shuts down, because at that point you are an authority. So then you can hold their hand or you can hold their shoulders, and then you call their names, because that signals safety. It also signals that something is just about to change. They feel safe, and now you have taken them safely out of their focus bubble, and now they're ready to listen to what it is that you have to say. And now that takes us to the second step. The second step is for you to recognize that their memory bank is so small. It really is so small. So the way you speak to them will help them be able to understand what you're saying. So the words need to match their age appropriate or their developmental stage where they are. For example, the instructions that you give, if it is a toddler, 18 months, they can only take one point instructions. For example, you can tell them pick up the toy. That is the only math they can. So you give instructions, one instruction at a time. A 2-year-old, they can understand 2 related instructions. For example, you can tell them pick up the toy and put it in the basket. A 3-year-old can understand 2 directions that are not related. For example, you can tell them put the toy in the box and get your shoes. A 5-year-old can follow 3-point unrelated directions. You can tell them put the toy away, go get the shoes, and start by the door. So it has to be precise, specific, because when you tell them so many things, their little brains fill up so quickly. The only thing that they will do the first thing they heard, or they will not do it at all, because it is so confusing and definitely so overwhelming. So they'll end up not doing anything that you're asking them to do. The third thing that you need to do is to pack up patience. You have to pause, and you have to be willing to pause. Research shows that for children to react to what you're telling them, it takes 7 to 10 seconds. Why does it do that? Because children need to own the information that you have given them. You have to give them time to receive, process, and then take them or figure out the action plan and then move their body. So you can count in your mind 1 to 10 seconds, of course not loud, because that becomes something else. but that will help you be patient for them and the children to be able to do whatever it is that they're doing. And that leads us now to the specific, to another point. If the child complies, it is so important to shine the spotlight of what it is that they just did. And that includes, for example, when they clean up, you can tell them, I noticed that you cleaned up those toys real quickly. Avoid words like good job, because that just dilutes everything. And if you want to find more about those kind of words and the words to use instead, this is the video for you, because you bracket everything they don't know. Why do we have to tell them in a sentence, or why do we have to describe what they did in to shine the spotlight of what they did? Because it creates confidence. It also helps them to know exactly what they did, so that they can repeat. They're more likely to repeat it tomorrow or another time that you ask them to do that. I know you are asking, what if the child does not comply? That takes us to the fifth one. The fifth one is the helping. If the child is not complying to what it is that you're asking them to do, it is time to repeat the instructions, but this time break them down completely into small portions so that the child can understand them. It is not time to lecture them, because when you lecture them, definitely you lose them. So how do you do that? A common scenario is, for example, when you are asking the child to put on the shoes. You can just show them where the shoes are, or you give them. Or if maybe it is toys you wanted them to clean up, you can just go and help them. You can say, for example, I pick up the blue toys and you're gonna pick up the yellow toys. And now you make it a game, so that you pivot from the instructional space to modeling what it is that you're requiring them to do. And you're making the task a little easier, because sometimes children are not in the task of the beginning. Now, if the child completely does not want to clean up or does not want to do the task that you're asking them to do, it is okay. Children are human beings. They are learning how to do things, they're learning how to process, and they're not necessarily there where we'd like them to be. And so it is okay for a child to, to have those moods. We always have them. They are little humans. They are only trying to survive and to interact with the environment around them. It is not that you're not doing the right thing. It just means that that very moment they're not willing. So this I do honestly to avoid those consequences, because sometimes they do not know exactly what to do. Now, if you do this and they are not doing, of course, this is the time, of course, to introduce the consequences, allow them to have a particular structure. For example, you can tell them, go ahead, we will go to play outside when you put on your shoes. So when you use such words, it will be relatively much easier for that child to know that when I'm done with this task, then I can be able to go and do 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know how you deal with these kind of things when you're interacting with the children. And thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video.